So on this day in 1415, hell on earth erupted at Agincourt as a starving and outnumbered English force took on the might of French chivalry. King Henry V of England had invaded France and he had come to claim the crown. After a prolonged siege at Harfleur, where he saw a lot of his men fall to dysentery, he now marches into the Lion's Den towards English-held Calais, taking only enough supplies for 8 days. An optimistic approach, yet doable with a solid pace. However, the French are hot on their heels, as they outmaneuver them to get to the River Somme first, cutting off any crossing for the English, driving them further and further into France, with their supplies beginning to run low and hunger setting in. The English did eventually find their crossing though downriver, and it was once again game on as they made a mad dash towards Calais. But the French had once again outmaneuvered them using the faster main roads and now blocked the English's path outside a town called Agincourt. Trapped, outnumbered over 2 to 1, slowly succumbing to hunger and dysentery, and exhausted after an over 200-mile march in sodden autumn weather, it looked like the English campaign was now set for failure. Things got worse for them though as a torrential downpour hit the fields on the night of the 24th of October as they spent the night shivering, and it turned the field into a now mushy mud pit. Even though the French had also endured these long miles, they were in much greater spirits that night, even gambling over which English lords they were going to take captive tomorrow morning. They were also likely eager to avenge prior humiliations such as the Battle of Crécy and Poitiers, where in stark contrast in the English camp they were ordered to sit in complete silence the entire night on pain of losing an ear or a horse if you had one. The English army had positioned itself flanked between 2 forests, and on their wings was their famed English longbowmen, which made up around 75% of their army, which numbered only 6,000 to 9,000, and these were protected by sharpened stakes with their men-at-arms in the centre with longbowmen intermixed. Their only saving grace was that they were commanded by the King of England himself. The French had no such luxury, as their king thought he was made of glass and could shatter at any moment. They were commanded by a selection of lords. The morning saw a standoff as the French waited for more reinforcements, and Henry, not wanting to go against every military textbook at the time that said if you move first you lose. However, he had to do something. His troops were starving and shitting themselves, so he advances first to bait the French into advancing on him. His bait works as now hundreds of French cavalry are charging across this muddy field that's turned to sludge overnight, as the English archers now let loose on them and blacken the sky with arrows. At a conservative estimate of only 5,000 English longwomen firing 8 shots per minute, it said they could go up to 12, that was 40,000 arrows raining down on the French per minute, causing absolute carnage. The sound of the screaming horses and wounded and dying men now echoed across the battlefield as this failed cavalry charge churned up the mud further, with the French men-at-arms advancing amidst all the chaos. While arrows didn't penetrate the best plate armour of the time, they could certainly cause some severe damage, slipping into the weak points of armour or splintering off, causing some severe injuries. The French men-at-arms now continued their exhausting march through the mud while rains of arrows fell on them, and while doing this they would have to keep their heads down in case an arrow pierced through their face, through the weak points in their visor, and marching like this is quite tiring, leaving you out of breath, and it exhausted them further. They did manage to reach the English lines and almost pushed them back, as the English lines were probably only around 6 deep, as a brutal melee now broke out with bodies being piled as high as a man. Many unable to get up due to their exhaustion, their weight of their armour combined with mud and bodies on top of them, as many horrifically drowned with the mud in their visors. More French soldiers joined into the fray, creating a horrific press, and the English archers were having an absolute field day firing at point blank at this giant mass, and once they ran out of arrows, they joined in the massacre with their daggers slotting it between the weak points of opponents' armour. A French hit squad was assigned to capture Henry, but it even came as close as chopping the crown off his helmet, where he was soon saved, as slowly but surely the English started to gain the upper hand in the carnage. However, what happened next at this point is uncertain, as Henry now does the medieval unthinkable. At some point during the battle, the English baggage train in the rear gets hit, and it's now looking like the French are gearing up for a third assault, and Henry now needs all hands on deck. He orders those guarding the prisoners in the rear to slaughter them except the most valuable. However, many protest this is just burning money, so he gets his archers to do it. Henry's thrown the codes of chivalry out the window, but it works as the French never launch their third assault and withdraw from the battlefield. Against all odds, Henry has cemented himself in legend, as the massacre saw only around 600 English perish compared to around 6,000 French. and while the battle victory didn't immediately further Henry's claim to the French crown, it did give him huge support to launch further campaigns.